I've asked Robert Peters this. I'll ask it to you first. Did you guys get it right?
Apparently not. And I say that because we've come back over and over with trailer bills, and we're cleaning up the language, and we're still talking about it. And that's part of the process that happens in Springfield. Now, did we get it wrong? No. I'm a firm believer that we didn't get it wrong, but we always have something to iron out, and that's what we're still working on. But when it comes to what we are hearing out in the public and on social media, it's very reprehensible. But at the same time, I get it. We're 56 days, 55 days from an election, and all the other talking points that the opposition usually use are not as effective this cycle. So we had to find something, and this is a good one to pick up. But it's imperative for people like me who are supportive of the Pretrial Fairness Act to shed light on the facts. And that's why I'm thankful to be here with you.
So let's talk about the cash bail idea, and I think it's clear this is where we're going. So it's going to be enacted one way or another. So whether it's right or wrong, I think it is another discussion. But let's talk about whether people can be held for the crimes that they're accused of. The question remains is that if unless there's there seems to be a misinterpretation between whoever, depending on people you ask, that depending on what level of felony or what crime is committed, if they're not a threat to a specific person, that they can't be held. Is that true?
That's not true. That's not true. There's a portion to the language that says that if they are a threat to a people or a community, then the judge uses their discretion on whether or not they should be detained. This has all happened after January 1. It puts the power in the judge's hands where it's supposed to be. Now, let me give you an extreme example. An example that's not listed of an offense that's not listed on the talking points that you see going around the state. I have someone I grew up with who was just charged with sexual criminal assault. Violent, not even on this list. But he has a $50,000 bond. So he could also, today, leave the jail system and be out in our community until his trial if he had the money to pay. So everything that you see on this list, those very offenses can walk the streets today if they have the money. The question is, how does that make people feel? Come January 1, the judge, per the law, will do a case-by-case assessment on whether or not that individual can be amongst us in society until they wait their trial, or if they should be detained. It puts the power in the judge's hands.
And this is where the potential cleanup comes in, because we've seen, some state's attorneys have sent me some lines that, the community lines, the single person lines, and maybe some people are unclear on the context. So I guess that leads me to the question of, was this rushed? I mean, obviously the Senate passed it in the middle of the night, the day before the last General Assembly expired in 2021. You guys passed it the House passed it with literally minutes to go before the legislature expired. I know you guys had been working on it, but it sure seemed like the language wasn't soup yet when you passed the bill. Did you rush it?
No, I don't think we rushed it at all. Because like you just said, we worked on it for 6 months prior to it hitting either floor. The conversations were fluent. The conversations kept on going all the way to the last minute. And we knew that there was going to be conversations even after we passed it. We needed to put a floor of where the negotiations would be. And so that's what happened with the first bill. And then we kept the conversation going throughout the year. The first bill in which everyone is up in arms passed in January 2021. Since then, there's been 2.5 trailer bills. One, I say and a half because one passed the House but hasn't passed the Senate yet. The conversation has been going on for the last year and a half. This hasn't been rushed at all.
So let's talk about crime then in general.
Hmm.
If you're open to that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I think it's safe, or somewhere in the middle. I think it's safe to say that there is a concern in our communities, whether it's Chicago, whether it's the suburbs, whether it's Rockford, Champaign, Peoria, Springfield, etc., that there's too much crime and not enough accountability for people who are committing crimes. Much of that blame, politically seems to be, thrown at your party because you're the guys in charge. So it's at your
Yeah.
feet. Are Democrats soft on crime, and should you be doing more to enhance penalties and do more to keep bad people off the street?
Democrats at all are not soft on crime at all. I would say more so that we are smart on crime. When it comes this arena, it cannot be black and white. And it's funny that I say black and white, but because smart on crime, tough on crime versus soft on crime has been a black versus white issue. And we saw how it disproportionately affected black and brown people when we were trying to be hard on crime. How did it disproportionately affect them? Well, we are all innocent until proven guilty. And so we will, when we're hard on crime and we stop and frisk and we pick up anyone and everyone that we deem to be a suspect, we derail their way of life until their trial. And if they can't pay their bond or bail, they're in jail, innocent until proven guilty, for months on end. Sometimes, God forbid, almost a year plus, until their trial date. By the time that happens, and they either are proven innocent or they're put on probation or whatever that case may be, their whole way of life is altered. And
But
now they're
is that still an accurate argument because of the reforms that have already been placed? Bob Berlin in DuPage County says they have more recognizance bonds than they've ever had before. The judges are essentially asking, what can you pay? And if they can't, they're still getting that $30 a day credit. Is that a moot point now?
no, I don't think it is a moot point. Not based on the conversations I've had with families who had loved ones still in jail who aren't able to pay their bail. I don't think it's a moot point at all. So we need to make sure we're smart on crime and not what is perceived as soft on crime. Smart on crime is going back to that word of which the criminal justice system was based on: rehabilitation, rehabilitating individuals, and restoring them back to society as law-abiding citizens. That's where we need to focus our efforts. And again, I'm all for those who deserve to be in jail need to stay in jail. And there needs not to be angel investors or bail set for individuals who are a threat to our community. That's what ending cash bail will do. And it puts, it puts the power back in the judicial system. And everyone should be okay with that.
But there's a concern, though, that habitual criminals continue to find their way through the system, whether it's in Cook County, whether it's in, other metropolitan areas. Your state's attorney even came out, against the your state's attorney in Winnebago County has come
Mhm.
out, with concerns about where we are on crime and holding people. Uh, there are too many that seem to be falling through the cracks, whether they're not prosecuted, whether they're not held, whether they're whether you can't get a conviction because someone won't speak up. There are a lot of issues out there. So what should be done, to make people, whether they're in Lakeview or on the south side or in Rockford or in the suburbs, how do we make them feel safer where they are?
Those examples you just gave about prosecution, people not stepping up, that there's no correlation with the legislation at hand. That's been a issue that we've had for quite some time, decades. People not stepping up. We're not being able to get all the evidence in place to convict. So what can we do? That's a great question. That's why we are, to this day, the public safety working group in the House is still having conversations with the States Attorneys Association, with other advocates, and that's why I was disappointed in seeing the press conference from my state's attorney, because it came a day after the States Attorneys Association was meeting with lawmakers to come up with language that we all can agree with. We're still talking about this. There's still going to be change that comes when it comes to this, to ensure that our state's attorneys are able to do their job.